Hello friends, and welcome to my channel if you're new, or welcome back if you are back. If you are new, hi, my name's Rabbit and my pronouns are they, them, and either way, thank you so much for clicking on my video today. So I am recording this little intro because this video originally wasn't gonna exist, I guess. Basically, this whole situation started with me talking about like baby bats and that classic like, oh, kids these days, they're all so fancy, and back in my day we were all so like awkward and messy, and like what happened to all those sweaty club pictures, you know, like that kind of thing. And it was mostly like silly and nostalgic at first, but then it kind of spiraled. I ended up rambling into my camera and spiraling into my notes app and overthinking in the shower. It's like, you know, the usual. And some of that turned into something like kind of sweet and soft and uplifting, kind of a love letter to the subculture and baby bats. And that part is its own little video. But this part is the messier half, the part that didn't really feel like it belonged there. It's gonna be really scattered. There's gonna be a lot of like weird little voice note interjections and stuff, but I tried to add some timestamps and stuff below for ease if you're like interested in specific topics. I'm honestly a little worried this whole thing just got like a little navel-gazy, and I'm very anxious about it. I think it's mostly just me trying to like untangle some complicated feelings about how like alternative subcultures are changing, about my own insecurities and belonging, about what it means to be like a responsible or thoughtful member of a community that I care about. And I want to be clear, this is not a fact-based video. This is based on my own perspective and very messy feelings. What's true for me may or may not be true for you, and the things I say may or may not reflect your own personal experience in the subculture. I'm not saying that yours is invalid, just trying to share mine. And I'm so worried this is gonna come off as like preachy or virtue signally, and just know that I'm not here to make like definitive arguments or pretend that I have all the answers, or I'm like this authority beacon of morality who knows everything correctly. Like, I'm not trying to lecture anyone. I usually really try to make positive content. Like, instead of complaining about why fast fashion is bad, I try to show how cool and accessible and awesome thrifting and DIY is, and like how you can do it too type of stuff. Like, I want people to feel excited to explore, not ashamed or shut out. And I feel really conflicted because in one breath I'm like, let everyone explore, but then in the next I'm like ranting about the algorithm or overconsumption or like trends. But to me, I don't think that the issue is like people trying things out. It's the systems that we're all working within, and how trying things out can feel really limited and shaped by what sells, and punished or ignored if it doesn't fit like the algorithmic version of what is viral. I don't blame people for being influenced by things they see online. I think we all are. I'm just wanting to carve out a little more space for like the weird, the handmade, the awkward, the evolving stuff. If you hear me ranting in this video, know that this is coming from a place of love, and definitely not one of authority. I am just some guy who has a lot of feelings about alternative subcultures, and I hope there's room for conversation that like holds the contradictions. So, picking up from where I left off, this video started with me talking about my awkward baby bat experience and like feeling nostalgic for like photos online when I was growing up. And to me, how that era felt really like experimental and special and real. Was the scene perfect back then? Absolutely not. It still, like it does today, I think, had and has a problem of like prioritizing whiteness and thinness and youth and like hotness, but I feel like there was a certain messy magic to it that felt real and expressive in a way that I don't often see now. And how it feels like nowadays you really have to go out of your way online to find things that feel messy and weird and experimental and like accessible. Today's online alt aesthetics, at least the very popular ones, can feel extremely polished, curated, and commercial. And I'm not saying that awkward baby bats don't exist anymore, but they feel a lot less visible online. And I worry that the glossy and super algorithm approved version of the subculture that we see now might perhaps make it feel unattainable for people who are just starting out in the subculture. And I am saying this from the fact that I read comments from people who say, oh my god, I feel like I'll never belong in the subculture because I can't afford like Killstar or whatever. That kind of thing. So, as someone who is both a viewer and a creator on this platform, I've been reflecting a lot on my own part in that. I love fashion. I am a maximalist, and I have a lot of stuff. Yes, most of it is secondhand. Yes, a lot of it is DIY'd, and yes, I keep things for a really long time. That does not erase the impact of being visibly styled and like having shit around me all the time. Fast fashion is running wild across every niche now, not just alternative subcultures, but also in our alternative spaces. I feel like we've had this conversation a million times about fast fashion, but yeah, I feel like I constantly am seeing the same goth items being promoted across multiple creators, and it can start feel like you have to consume to belong. What started this video, you ask? Me doing an unboxing for this and being like, oh my god, I am part of the problem. Or am I? I don't know. Okay, so that is what bums me out. Subcultures are supposed to be about creativity and community and weirdness, not about conformity and consumption. At least, ideally. However, if all you see online are hauls from Shein or massive Killstar wardrobes or just these super unattainable things, it can feel like you absolutely will never belong or be taken seriously if you also don't buy into that image. And that sucks, because you don't need $300 to be goth. You need music, self-expression, maybe some shitty DIYs, and the willingness to be a weirdo in your bedroom. That's how I started at 12, and I feel so freaking lucky I did. I'm not saying that's how everyone has to start, but I get worried that the barrier of entry nowadays feels unattainable. I definitely have been guilty of overconsumption in the past. I'm trying to be more mindful. I think some important things to consider when making a new purchase are how will I use this? Or when? Or where will I wear this, you know? Do I see myself enjoying it in a year? In 2? In 5? Can I reuse or modify something I already own instead of buying something new? Is there a lower impact way to get this thing? Can I get it secondhand? Can I borrow it? Can I thrift it? Can I swap someone for it? If I'm bored of an item that I already have, can I DIY it into something fresh? No, these things are not always easy, but I think it is absolutely worth it. And not everyone has equal access, so yes, I get that. But I think that this is a topic that is worth talking about. I'm not saying that if you buy things you're evil, or that I've never made an unethical purchase, but I would like to question some of the things that I've been seeing online that seem to promote the needing more to buy more to endlessly keep up with trends, the decluttering just to make room for the next haul, and the pressure online to constantly acquire things to show them off. And I also want to be super clear. I know that not everyone's feeds look the same, and we do have power over what we consume, but I think it's also disingenuous to ignore how algorithms and capitalism shape what we see and what we reward. So I'm not trying to claim a moral high ground. I'm just someone who's been on YouTube for a couple years, who's loves this subculture, and who's feeling conflicted. And yes, this stuff exists on a spectrum. When I'm talking about overconsumption, I'm not being you're terrible because you bought a few fast fashion pieces a year. I'm talking about these massive 50-item hauls that are becoming the norm, where we're tossing out stuff just so we can make room for new stuff, and the old stuff was perfectly good. Yes, we all participate in capitalism to a certain extent, and we're all harmed by it in different ways, but I think we deserve better than being reduced to how much we consume. I also don't want to make this sound like I think individual choices are the whole answer or the whole problem. They're not. One person making careful decisions can't undo corporate destruction. That doesn't make our choices meaningless, but I feel like it's also kind of important to look at what the bigger picture is in this. And I wanted to talk about the whole all goths look the same take, because honestly it feels like a lazy oversimplification. Yes, we are in a subculture that shares a visual language, music, values. There's gonna be fucking overlap. That's not the problem. The problem isn't that we look alike. The problem for me is sometimes why. I'm not upset that people like to go for the same aesthetic or that they want to wear similar things. If dressing like your friends makes you feel powerful, go for it. But I do worry when participating in goth or any subculture starts to look like a shopping list. The videos about starting out as a goth are about what boots to buy and what lipstick to buy and curated decor hauls. Suddenly, the most goth people are just the ones who can afford to look the part. Suddenly, it's not about the music or the art or the weird little zines. I feel like this topic is overdone and it's been said a million times, and we should be done talking about it by now. And I get that everyone is doing their best, and within capitalism, unfortunately, the shit that does really well on YouTube is the hauls and the unboxings and the selling people products and getting affiliate links. So I get that we're all just doing our own thing, but it feels like capitalism leaks into the subculture and teaches us that the only way to be something is to buy into it. And that's what scares me. Not the fact that people match, but that people feel like they have to, or they're afraid not to. When did our role models become brands instead of artists or weirdos or each other? I don't want the subculture to lose its teeth. I don't want the strange parts shaved off so we can sell more eyeliner. I want us to celebrate creativity, not just consumption. The thing that bothers me about Amazon or fast fashion hauls or Shein isn't the fact that like, oh, you're not a real goth because you shopped at a fast fashion store. It's the fact that it's bad for the environment. It's the fact that it's bad for human rights. It's the fact that it's bad for, like, on an overconsumption level. Like, obviously, sure, it makes me sad that people don't get to experience the joy of DIY and the, like, effects of creativity and self-expression and stuff, but, like, I don't care if they're a real goth because they dressed from Shein. I care about the fact that Shein is like a fundamentally unethical company, and also when people use fast fashion as an excuse for not exploring thrifting or creativity or DIY. Overconsumption, especially in a subculture like ours, is something that we should talk about, not from a place of shaming individuals, but from a place of asking, why do we constantly feel like we need to do hauls? What systems are profiting off our insecurity and desire to belong? How do we actually physically DIY? How do we actually physically thrift? I'm not here to debate goth points, but I really love this community and I want to see it be great. I'm all about making things work from where you are, not waiting until you live in a city with like 6 curated vintage shops and a $200 budget. I have videos on DIYs that are super cheap. I have videos on how to thrift for an alternative wardrobe. I don't think it's about being perfect. It's about being aware and just maybe doing things a little different or thinking about these things. You don't need a Killstar package for a goth outfit. You need a hot glue gun, maybe some safety pins and an open mind, you know? Okay, so on the topic of overconsumption and why I think it's so common online, I want to share a few thoughts from my own experience as both a viewer and a creator. Not as a definitive answer, just like some observations. So videos that are centered on new stuff, like hauls or unboxings or try-ons, tend to perform really well, especially when they're made by large creators. And that's not surprising. Platforms reward content that gets clicks, and the allure of newness hits a lot of dopamine buttons. Watching those videos can be cozy, it's exciting, it can even be aspirational. And because those videos do so well, creators make more of them. That cycle sets a kind of tone across the platform, where newer or smaller creators often feel, consciously or not, that in order to grow or to be taken seriously, they have to mimic that style of content too. And often they genuinely do enjoy making it. Like, I know I did. When I first started YouTube, I freaking loved watching Halloween hauls from big creators. And honestly, I still will occasionally watch them. And I made some of my own. But looking back, I can see how I was unintentionally promoting overconsumption, emphasizing how much I bought over what I created or experienced. Over the years, I started reflecting on what I really love about Halloween, you know, the atmosphere, the nostalgia, the sense of magic. And so I shifted my focus. These days, my Halloween content is all about, like, the adventures I have during the season, the DIY crafts I'm making, the vegan recipes, the nature walks, the camping with my boyfriend, the wardrobe restyling, little small cool events that I'm heading to, and just, like, things that feel more grounded and meaningful to me. If I do hauls, they're a lot smaller, and I try to make them primarily with thrifted or handmade items, though I'm still absolutely not immune to the temptations of Halloween capitalism. Like, trust me. I love the way I make seasonal content now. It feels so much more fulfilling and personal. But I'm not gonna lie, the videos that I make now perform so much worse than my older haul style ones. And I'm not gonna blame anyone for what they choose to watch. Like, seriously, watch what brings you joy. I'm not, like, shaming you for not watching my content. But I'm trying to say that I get how discouraging it can be to pour your heart into something that, like, feels really creative and thoughtful, only to see it vanish into the algorithm void while your old, like, here's what I bought at Winners video keeps racking up views. So, like, I'm not saying I'm above it or that everyone else is doing it wrong. And I think it's probably super annoying to hear this from a channel, like, not that I'm saying I'm like a big famous YouTuber, but I remember when I would watch YouTubers talk about, like, not getting views or whatever, and I'm like, hi, you have 50,000 subscribers or like 100, like, shut the fuck up. Like, so I get it. I get how this can be super annoying. It is so hard to start on YouTube when you're a small creator and when you're, like, trying to make creative stuff. So, like, I just think it's important to recognize how the cycles work, how it can be hard to break out of it, and that, like, the system is designed to reward the opposite of slowness, intention, and sustainability. Okay, so I'm not saying this to say, like, I'm perfect or that collecting isn't a form of overconsumption, because it absolutely can be. But as someone who really loves and cherishes objects, especially, like, weird old toys and dolls, I wanted to talk about how I personally square my feelings about it. And I know that not everyone has this luxury, okay? Okay, so Take my Monster High dolls, for example. So a couple of years ago, I got really into them, and I started building my collection by searching secondhand through Facebook Marketplace, thrift stores, and looking local collectors. Most of the dolls I found were played with. They were a little messy, they were missing clothes, totally imperfect. And that's what I loved. I got to clean them up, fix them, restyle them, display them, actually care for them. It wasn't about, like, needing them, but about the joy of restoration, curation, and storytelling through objects. Since the reboot, I have bought a couple ones from Mattel, like 5, I think, because I genuinely like them. I'm not immune to the hype. But overall, I feel much better spending money in my local community or supporting, like, thrift shops or people who are, like, getting rid of their old collections rather than, like, directly handing my money to a mega corporation like Mattel. And I'm aware that there's a privilege in even being able to find secondhand dolls in the first place, and I don't think any of this makes me morally superior. Like, if you had to buy your collection firsthand, I get it. Like, completely understand. But I'm just trying to talk about how I balance being a collector while trying to be mindful of waste and overproduction. I have a lot of toy collections, like Goths, Zelfs, Novistars, and all of them are secondhand too. Is it still consumption? 100%. But to me, it's kind of a form of reuse, giving love to things that already exist in the world instead of feeding the demand for new production. I don't think that's perfect, and I don't think it's, like, immune from overconsumption, but okay, I wanted to talk a little bit about the whole, like, capitalism thing, because I've had, like, a lot of internalized disappointment just, like, at existing in a capitalist system as, like, a content creator or whatever the hell that means. So, again, reading out my notes. This is super embarrassing, so whatever. When I started a YouTube channel, I was always like, I'm not a real YouTuber, like those people who have, like, teams and, like, lots of followers and, like, a brand, quote unquote. And I don't ever want to be. Like, I don't want YouTube to be my job. It's supposed to be, like, for fun and creative expression and sharing what I love about the subculture, and I don't ever want to feel like I have to rely on it for money or, like, have to do sponsorships or anything like that, because that just feels, like, so stressful and weird and alien, and I just, like, don't even know where I would start with that. It's, like, when I started YouTube, okay? But then there's also a huge part of me that feels like I'm drowning. Like, I'm putting in more work than I ever have in my channel, and it's just doing bad. And, like, that's fine. Things have ebbs and flows and ups and downs, and it's no one's fault. But part of me freaking gets jealous. Jealous of people who make short videos consistently and have them do really well. Of people who primarily make, like, haul content instead of DIY. I convince myself that they have it easier, and then I spiral because I know I'm being unfair to them, that they have their own struggles, and these are my issues to unpack, it's not their problem. Like, I never thought of myself as being a person who potentially would take sponsorships or do unboxings or anything, because, like, I'm not a real YouTuber. I'm just, like, a guy in his room, and I have no clue what I'm doing. But there's also a big part of me that feels really freaking worried about my influence, because as much as I, like, tell myself, like, I'm not a real YouTuber, like, factually, like, I did a sponsorship, I did an unboxing, and, like, there's a big part of me that feels incredibly worried about that, and that I'm just, like, contributing to the capitalist machine that I'm, like, claiming to hate. And that said, I need to eat, and, like, the burnout hit hard, and while that's no one's fault, I feel really disappointed in myself for, like, needing to rely on sponsorships for the extra income instead of just being able to, like, power through the burnout and, like, make DIY items to sell physically to people because I feel like that's more valuable. But it can also be fucking exhausting, and I'm constantly second-guessing my own abilities and my own creativity and whether I, like, deserve to sell the things I make or whether I deserve to price things fairly. And a lot of the things, like, I understand on an intellectual level, but, like, emotionally, it's hard. And then filming a Gothic beauty unboxing also got me feeling, like, super weird and spirally, because I freaking love that magazine and have, like, so much nostalgia for them and so many fond memories and, like, blah blah blah. And I've watched other people unbox them, and I've, like, had these weird, like, jealous thoughts to myself, like, good for them, like, wish I had that, which is super fucking embarrassing to admit. And I have in the past really enjoyed videos where people, like, unbox spooky subscription boxes. But there's also a part of me that on a fundamental level feels like the concept of a subscription box, or, like, surprise items where, like, you don't know what the item you're getting, is like capitalist bullshit, like on a fundamental level. Like you're just paying a company for random shit to show up at your door, and like so many subscription boxes are just like plastic crap that end up in the landfill. And like that makes me really sad. And like the fact that it was one of my worst performing videos I filmed recently was like weirdly such a relief. Like I was kind of like, thank fuck that video did poorly. Like the community doesn't care about random overconsumption. And partially also I was like feeling glad because I was like embarrassed for being like a shill. Like yes, I actually did like the magazine and I actually did really like the makeup. I thought the articles were really good, but there's like such a part of me that feels guilty for like potentially promoting something that someone doesn't like actually need and just like might contribute to more overconsumption in their life. Like, yeah, obviously it's fun to get free stuff, and I would be lying if I didn't say I was like excited about like shiny new things. But at the end of the day, like, is that really my dream? To get free shit to show off to strangers on the internet? Like, that's lame as hell. I want my dream to be to create, to explore, to try new things, to be innovative and have fun. Not like be a walking advertisement and like promote overconsumption. And it's like fucking so hard squaring those feelings with like, I want to be able to eat, as in like accepting sponsorships. So I do have like a rule about like only accepting ones that I feel like comfortable with and like actually agree with like the concept of, and like I actually will use all this makeup, but like I worry like, am I being a poor example of my own values? Am I the issue? Like, I think I just have a lot of weird feelings about the way like goth and alternative spaces feel like they're becoming more mainstream and more commercialized, and how I feel like I'm catching myself participating in that despite wanting to resist. Like, am I the problem? Sorry, I have more thoughts. I just want to say, like, I genuinely enjoyed making that unboxing video, even if it did send me into a bit of a guilt spiral afterward. If you watched it, like, genuinely thank you. I'm not trying to imply that anyone is shallow for enjoying that kind of content. Like I said, I also watch that kind of content. This isn't about shaming anyone, least of all my audience. I know you guys are capable of critical thinking and making informed choices. I think what I was struggling with was the feeling that maybe I'd added one more promotional voice to the noise. I have a lot of nostalgic affection for Gothic Beauty magazine. It was part of my awkward baby bat years, and being contacted by them felt validating. Like, I'd been noticed by a piece of the goth world that I once looked up to, and that felt good, which made me uncomfortable. Like, I don't want brand recognition to matter to me, but it did, and that has since stirred up some complicated feelings. I'm still untangling how much of my decision to accept that box came from genuine interest, and how much was shaped by internalized capitalist values. It's murky. Gothic beauty is something special, part of subcultural history, made by people who clearly care. The articles I read were thoughtful, and I love seeing indie goth businesses featured. Like, I want small goth businesses to succeed. But it's also a product that's tied to a subscription model, existing in a landscape that demands constant promotion, packaging, and marketability. And that's where things got complicated. I don't want to critique the community itself, especially not the small makers and artists trying to keep it alive. But I do want to be honest about how capitalism keeps seeping into subcultural spaces. Now, that pressure isn't new. Goth has always existed inside capitalism, because it exists within society, which is capitalist. But lately, it feels harder to tell where support ends and consumerism begins. There's a fine line between celebrating the scene and commodifying it. Like, when does a small, beloved brand grow into something that feels corporate or compromised? How big do you have to be a sellout? Scaling up always changes things, and the more visibility, the more tangled I feel like it gets. I don't have a neat answer, and I want goth media and businesses to survive and thrive. But I also want us to stay weird and grounded and rooted in more than just product cycles. As someone who runs a small alt business myself, or is trying to, I feel that tension deeply. There's no clean solution, but maybe being transparent about the discomfort is part of staying honest and part of keeping the heart of the subculture alive. There's part of me that's really happy about the goth is becoming more accepted and more popular and like whatever, because it means more people are able to be themselves and able to like experiment with something and able to like access things that like maybe they wouldn't have been able to in the past, and like there's just in general more acceptance, and like all of that stuff is absolutely fantastic. So that part is great, but the fact that that is also coming with just our entire world and our entire lives overruled with the over-capitalism, over-consumption, over whatever, like, yeah. So I just want to say, if you have ever told me in the comments that you've DIY'd something, or tried something new, or made something with your own two hands, that lights up my entire world. I love you guys. I think creativity is the most beautiful, wonderful experience, and if you are out there trying, even and especially if you think you are bad at creativity, I think you are awesome. I don't think you have to be perfect at all. I'm not asking for that. But I guess I have a lot of weird feelings about all this. Like, DIY is how we got here in the first place. Subcultures weren't created in the mall. They were built in basements. People made their own clothes. They were sewing patches. They were ripping up thrift finds. They were making zines and mixtape and sharing bootlegs and putting safety pins in weird places. And DIY is so important, and it's identity work. It's how you build your outside to reflect your inside. Also, DIY isn't about skill. It's about trying. Like, things don't have to look good. I love DIY that looks bad. That's part of the process. Your first shirt might suck, but wear it anyway. Like, a look can be sold, but a subculture can't. And what we have is more than fashion. It's connection, it's history, it's shared language, it's creativity and community and expression. And not to be super rude, but sometimes the lack of effort, like, honestly makes me so sad. Like, on my DIY videos, I'll occasionally get comments that people say, like, I wish I could DIY, but I'm just too lazy. And it's like, that sucks, because DIY is literally, in my opinion, one of the best freaking parts of the subcultures. Like, seeing things that aren't perfect, but are personal and handmade and interesting. It's so much cooler than anything you could ever purchase from a fast fashion website. And I get that some people really love highly curated aesthetics, and that's completely valid too. I just want to make space for the weirdos who don't see themselves in these completely perfect, highly curated spaces. I said I would try not to be judgmental in this video, but I'm really fighting it. I get that DIY can be intimidating, but creativity requires a bit of risk. A bit of figuring it out. And I think most of you get that. And I might be super off base with this, and I don't want to sound like doomy or dramatic. Maybe a little, but you know what I mean. I've been thinking about the current content climate and how it might potentially be messing with how folks are experiencing DIY. And I'm not saying that there's no creativity out there. There is, and people are still doing weird and messy and personal, like, beautiful stuff. But I do think that there are patterns forming shaped by platforms and how we consume things. And honestly, I'm just a little bit worried that it's messing with people's expectations. From what I see, we've sort of ended up with two extremes of things that go viral. Either the hyper-condensed, hyper-polished, like, gorgeous, like, 60 hours of work condensed to 60 seconds DIY that look effortless and possibly unattainable, or like the super simple copy-paste trends that get churned out endlessly. Both have their place. I'm not upset that either exists, but I think that the in-between, that's where the DIY that I love often lives. And that middle zone, the one that's full of experimentation and failure and slow progress and weird half-finished pieces, that kind of stuff doesn't go viral. It's not easy to sell. It doesn't always look good or suit everyone's tastes. But I think it's really real. And, like, yes, loads of my closet is DIY'd. But it took like 15 fucking years to get there. 15 years of screwing things up, repainting pieces 5 times, learning slowly. That's not a bad thing. That's what makes it feel mine. And while I don't have TikTok, I'm feeling like this kind of instant gratification, TikTokification of everything is affecting, like, all platforms. Like, suddenly, even on YouTube, there's like these ultra short, ultra shareable, ultra satisfying content that feels like you're pressured to make. And maybe I'm just worried I don't fit in and I'm being selfish. It's very possibly just sour grapes. Very high potential that I'm just being a grumpy old man. But I don't know, I think I'm just kind of mourning the loss of what I'm feeling is like slow, imperfect, deeply personal DIY in the sea of algorithm-chosen sameness. Like, I'll search for alt or punk DIYs and get compilations where it feels like every other project is the freaking monster can tab bracelet or whatever. And, like, I'm not saying you can't make that or, like, you're such a poser for making that. Like, if you love it, go for it. I don't care. To me, DIY is about experimenting, messing up, doing weird stuff because it's weird. And I miss that energy sometimes. Again, I'm not saying don't, like, copy things or get inspiration, because you can't make anything without, like, referencing something a little bit to a point, you know what I mean? Also, So on the DIY thing, I don't do DIY or make content about it because I feel like I have to. Like, I do it because I love it. Like, it genuinely brings me joy. I find it fun. I love creativity. I love expression. I love making stuff with my little hands. I love seeing what other people create and feeling inspired to try something myself. But like, that said, I get that art isn't immune to overconsumption. And I have seen critiques in the community about like, oh, you're not a real punk if you own more than one like custom jacket. And it's like, I get where you're coming from, and I think it's valid to question our relationship with stuff even when it's handmade. But for me, DIY is really about the process, not just the product. Like, I think last year, maybe a few years ago, I got super obsessed with Buffy the Vampire Slayer, and I ended up making and designing all these like little hand-stenciled, hand-cut, hand-printed patches of all the characters in the show and like little fun inside jokes and quotes and like random crap like that. Put them on jackets. I made 2, kept 1, sold 1, and I had an absolute blast. Each piece that I've ever made has taught me something new, and it like reflects a specific creative moment in my life and feels like a little snapshot of that moment and like what I was into and like that time and those bands and like all that inspiration. Like, I feel like art and expressing yourself in a way that feels real is really important. I don't think it's about collecting stuff for the sake of it. It's about expression, about learning, about joy. I'm not here to say that everyone has to sew or stencil or get into DIY. Like, if you hate it, don't do it, obviously. But like, there's so much art out there that it's hard for me to believe that there's not even like one teensy tiny little craft thing in all of creative expression that you might potentially like doing. If there's not, that's fine too. But like, if you're someone who wants to engage with style in a way that's like really personal, really expressive, and really hands-on, like, I think DIY is a really beautiful part of that. And like, yes, even DIY can get caught up in the same cycles of consumption, but I think it's disingenuous to pretend that art and shopping are the same. If someone's over-consuming, I'd rather it be through making like 5 weird, messy, expressive jackets than dropping hundreds of dollars on like fast fashion starter goth pack from Amazon. Like, you know what I mean? Especially when so much of that stuff is a knockoff from real artists. So I don't think this is an either or, but I think it's something to think about. And I do worry, I mean, personally, as like a DIY artist myself, I do worry that this idea of like conflating DIY and overconsumption has the potential to maybe harm small artists. But I don't know, maybe that's just me being selfish. That is totally a possibility. The super like viral goth girl or like really trad aesthetics can make people feel like there's only one way or only one correct way to be alternative, and it can create a pressure to look good immediately. And I wanted to say, if you love the classic trad goth vibe, that's amazing. I'm genuinely happy for you. But if you're only wearing it because you're scared of doing anything else or being seen as not goth or being alternative the wrong way, that is where I would like to offer you a different alternative. I've been thinking a lot about the idea of perfection in alternative subcultures, and especially like goth and punk, and how much pressure there is to fit into very specific looks. And to be clear, I don't want any infighting, please. This isn't about calling anyone out, especially not trad goths or conventionally attractive creators. It's just about how I personally worry/feel that I don't belong. So first I want to preface this by saying I am a white, skinny person. I understand that I have it really, really freaking easy compared to a lot of people, and a lot of the things that make me like different is things that I can take off. Like, I can shave my armpits, I can grow out my hair, I can straighten my hair, you know, these kind of things. To be clear, I understand that some of this might be weird coming from me, but sometimes I really like hesitate to call my videos stuff like goth fashion or like goth DIY because I feel like I don't fit the mold of like what is supposed to be like goth. I'm tan, I have big ol' eyebrows, I have hairy armpits, and because of my sensory issues, I can't wear like really intense trad goth makeup. I don't look like Morticia Adams or Susie Sue, and since I don't look like that, I sometimes worry that my version of goth isn't like real. Which is stupid, and I get that. I feel lots of times, especially on the internet, when people say that someone isn't a real goth, they're just using that as code for trad goth, even though they're insisting it's all about the music. Like, it's really people who visually fit outside the trad aesthetic that get questioned about the music way more than people who like don't in my experience, and I don't think it's always intentional, but it does feel like there's like a little bit of an unspoken bias there. And I'm not mad at people for being beautiful or for being trad, but I do catch myself wondering, like, do I fit in? Would I get taken more seriously if I shaved my armpits? If I stopped saying my pronouns in my videos? If I straightened my hair and like stopped shaving the sides and like having crooked bangs all the time? Maybe. When I examine what I'm insecure about despite like knowing better, there's a pattern. It's not random. It's the things that are seen as undesirable in a misogynistic, cis-sexist, transphobic, fatphobic, white supremacist society. My ungoth insecurities, my eyebrows are too thick and I have curly hair. Like, those are both things that are like coded as ethnic. My body hair, because hair on bodies like mine is like seen as gross. The fact that I introduce myself with my pronouns, which is like cis-sexism creeping in. And like, as an Italian, like, yes, I'm white, but I'm naturally like dark and hairy and don't fit into that like super pale like goth girl thing. So I'm not trying to equate that to the very real racism or marginalization that others face, but I am trying to highlight that these insecurities often trace directly back to the systems we live in. White supremacy, misogyny, cis-sexism, and that is something worth interrogating. Like, we don't just randomly feel not goth enough. We're absorbing years of aesthetic conditioning and gatekeeping, and even though the subculture is meant to be a home for weirdos and outsiders, we still have a long history of idolizing whiteness and thinness and able-bodiedness and like a really narrow kind of beauty. So like, yes, the internet has made spaces for goths of color and trans goths and fat goths and disabled goths and neurodivergent goths and goths who don't fit into multiple of those categories. But those creators, I feel like, have to work twice as hard to be seen. The algorithm is biased, the audience is conditioned, and I often wonder, like, would I even have this platform if I didn't happen to have a face that is symmetrical, if I wasn't thin and white? Which is why intersectionality matters. You can't separate these systems, racism, ableism, misogyny, homophobia, fatphobia. They layer over each other, and when someone just exists at one or more of those intersections, just being visible in alternative spaces can be so difficult. It's not just about whether someone feels cute in their outfit, it's about whether they're seen, whether they're heard, or even considered to be a valid part of the scene. I think that our subcultures have a lot of potential to be radical, but we also have to be real about where we've upheld exclusivity. Who have we centered? Who have we left out? Who is still fighting to be taken seriously in a space that's supposed to be about self-expression and resistance? This isn't just a subculture problem, it's a society problem, but we can start small. We can fight it in our own closets, our own feeds, our own comment sections. The practice of being inclusive, of validating differences, of listening and unlearning, that is political work too. And just to be really clear, like, I'm not saying any of this from like a moral high horse. I'm not trying to be like, oh, I've always gotten everything right. No, I have made careless mistakes before. I've had to be called in and corrected and reminded that good intentions aren't always enough. But that's part of growth, that's part of learning. I'm still learning, and I always will be. My goal isn't to be the perfect spokesperson, or a spokesperson at all, but rather I want to be part of a subculture that has more room in it. A subculture that listens and reflects and changes when it needs to. That's the kind of scene that I want to be a part of, and the kind of person I'm trying to be, even when I fall short. The way that you guys interact with me in my comment section, like, it does make me feel so seen and so loved, and, like, I found my community, and I've been able to find my people, and, like, feel validated, and, like, people get where I'm coming from, and my gender, and my this, and my that, and, like, things about me that are, like, the rest of society sees as gross, like, you guys understand is, like, not. But I just want other people to also feel that way, and I just want our community to have space for everyone. Similar. Why do you mention that society at large has like a white supremacy / racism / sexism problem, and that seeps into the goth subculture? Like, why do you say that? You know, people, it's getting better out here. It's not, whatever, okay? Right? I know that it can feel uncomfortable to hear people say that goth or any subculture has problems with racism or sexism or any other form of exclusion. And I'm not saying that goth is inherently bad or hateful, but we do live in a larger society shaped by systems like white supremacy and patriarchy and colonialism. And it's not like once you put on black eyeliner, you're magically freed from the biases of the world. Like, let's look at what we're told is legitimate goth. The must-know bands? Mostly composed of white men. The literature canon? Mostly composed of white authors. And who gets treated like an outsider or suspected of not being goth enough? Often it's women, young people, people of color, and just anyone who doesn't look trad enough. Think about how quick people are to mock or dismiss newer styles like e-girl goths or hyper-feminine expressions. There's often this underlying belief that being visibly sexual or being too feminine or being too online somehow makes you less serious, like you're corrupting the subculture. But what if those expressions are also about survival, exploration, or rebellion, just shaped by different conditions? Why are young women who are into the subculture immediately treated with suspicion instead of acceptance, especially the further they fit out of the visually appropriate goth woman mold, aka trad? Which, like I said in the last one, there's nothing wrong with being trad, it's just like when that's treated as like the only legitimate way, and if you're not that, then you must be like in it for the wrong reasons. That stuff isn't about the music, it's just about bias. I'm not accusing individual people of being intentionally hateful, but I'm saying that these patterns are structural, they're cultural habits, and if we care about goth, we have to be willing to question who gets entered and who gets erased. Okay, I'm sure we're all sick of the music debate, but there's been something that I've been turning over in my head for a while, and I don't really know why it bothers me, and I guess just talking through it here. So, like, sometimes I see people getting mad about, like, no one listens to the music anymore and, like, blah, 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 when they're talking about goth. And I completely understand the frustration because, like, yeah, the music is awesome and it's, like, such a core part of the subculture. But sometimes the way it's phrased, it feels like, buddy, like, do you even like the music? Or are you just using it as, like, a gatekeeping badge? I'm specifically referencing this post that I remember seeing that went something along the lines of, like, being a goth means liking a music genre that 99% of the human population hates. And it's like, come on, like, okay, yes, like, goth isn't top 40, I will give you that, but I feel like that attitude really does a disservice to the subculture. Like, the variety of goth music that is out there. There's, like, gorgeous, beautiful, twinkly little ethereal fairy sounds like the Cocteau Twins. There's like dancey stuff that has like super incredible hits like the Sisters of Mercy. There's emotional, intense, like hardcore, weird, grindy industrial noises like Alien Sex Fiend. There's whiny, wailing, theatrical grossness like Cinema Strange, which is my favorite band. Like, there's so much variety, and while not everyone is gonna love everything, a lot of people hear goth music and go, whoa, this is like actually really cool. Like there's a reason goth was a huge subculture in the 80s. A lot of the bands were and still are extremely well known. Like, people liking the thing you like isn't a threat. It should be a celebration. Like, how is other people finding joy and connection in something making it less real? Maybe I'm being hypocritical because I'm saying, let people like the things they like, and if someone just likes something because 99% of the population hates it, then, like, who am I to take that away from them? But I guess it just, like, I don't know, there's just, like, something about it that feels weird to me. Maybe I'm just projecting because of annoying comments that I get that are like, goth is about the music or whatever. And I'm like, yes, dude, like, goth is a music-based subculture, absolutely. But it feels limiting to act like that's all it is. Goth has grown from its roots into a full cultural world, full of art, fashion, literature, community. How is the expansion of the creativity in it a bad thing? And, like, I really think there's no wrong way to get into a subculture. Personally, I am an extremely visual person, and the thing that drew me to goth initially was the fashion. And as I learned more about it, and the wonderful music, and the rich history, and the beautiful architecture, and incredible literature, and all these, like, adjacent little alt subcultures like punk and ska and folk punk and all these stuff, I was like, oh my god, this is, like, such a wonderful and special surprise. It's, like, uncovering a whole, like, hidden world. Like, I love this stuff. Like, not every single thing, obviously, but, like, yeah, a lot of it does appeal to me. And that's fine. Like, that's not less valid than someone who got into the music first and then only wore goth makeup once they had, like, memorized 50 bands and everyone's personal biography. Like, everyone's fine. It's fine. Like, as long as you're having fun, it's fine. I understand the fear behind goth becoming more mainstream or watered down. It can feel like something that was once wild and intimate and deeply personal is being flattened or co-opted by people who just don't get it. And I think when you discover a subculture that like really speaks to your soul and like makes you feel seen for the first time, it's supernatural to feel protective. It can feel like no one else could possibly understand my deep and personal and special connection with this thing. Like everyone else is just bandwagoning. But I think that kind of gatekeeping, even when it comes from a place of love, robs the community of a lot of joy. I'm so over the name 5 albums mentality. I never want to make someone else feel like they have to prove themselves worthy of being here. I've struggled so much with imposter syndrome. Like, am I even goth enough to label my videos as like goth fashion? Like, will people get mad at me? And I hear that same fear from so many other people, like especially people who are new, or from people who've been told they don't look goth because of their identity or body or interests. Subculture should be about community, not exclusion. It's us, the people in them, who make them special, not gatekeeping or obscure trivia. Like, if we want a subculture to stay alive, we have to keep welcoming new people. Everyone in any scene started with zero knowledge, and if we treat curiosity as a threat, then we push people away before they've even had a chance to explore or contribute anything. Instead of guarding the gates, I want to hold them open. I want people to feel excited, not intimidated, to approach this world from a place of curiosity, creativity, and connection. Because I think that's where the magic is. And honestly, I don't care if someone tries out goth for a few years and moves on. I hope they had fun. I hope it helped them discover something about themselves. I think that's beautiful. Like, the label poser gets thrown around like it's the worst thing you could possibly be. But so many times it just means someone who's new or someone who's trying something out. Like, how are you supposed to figure out what fits you without experimenting? I think trying on different identities, aesthetics, scenes, that's not fake. That's just human. Like, that's how we learn who we are. And tell me if you are the same way, because I feel like so many alternative folks, including myself, tend to almost go through like style cycles within alternative subcultures. Like, personally for me, my big four that I seem to bounce between are like hippie and goth and punk and pastel. And all of it feels real to me. Like, each phase taught me something, stretched my creativity, connected me to different people, and gave me new ways to express myself. Why wouldn't I want more of that? I'm so over the rigid divides between alternative scenes. Like, this is punk, this is goth, this is emo, no overlap. Like, what a bizarre way to approach a creative community. Our subcultures are so rich. Why wouldn't we explore each other's styles, music, histories, and vibes? Like, I'm not a gothic Lolita, but I think their fashion is incredible. I love to look at it. I don't dress as punk as I used to, but I still love the music, and I think I always will. You don't have to commit to one label forever, or at all. You don't have to prove your authenticity by rejecting everything else. Labels should be useful as, like, a way to describe and, like, find things that you are interested in, not a way to restrict yourself into not having any fun or letting yourself try out stuff. So, yeah. I've got a soft spot for posers. Being a poser means you're open. You're curious. You're brave enough to explore something new, even if you're not an expert. That's cool as hell. I also want to talk about how exhausting it is to expect, like, creators or artists to be perfect. And not just, like, from my own perspective, but I think that fear stops a lot of people from sharing their own work. This pressure to be, like, a flawless role model or moral authority, especially when you talk about identity or community stuff. And I get it, because I'm scared of that too. I'm, like, always scared of messing up or saying something wrong, and, like, I think it's fair to have some anxiety and, like, to want to make sure you're saying the correct things. But, like, while I was filming this video, like, as you can see, I just have to keep stopping filming and, like, clarifying things and, like, backtracking, because I'm really scared that someone's gonna see this and, like, think that I think I'm some kind of expert or, like, moral authority on this stuff. And I'm not. I'm, like I've said, just a guy who's trying to figure this stuff out. And the truth is that even the people we admire most are just people, and some of them are gonna mess up. Some of them are going to disappoint us, and some of them will cause real, like, actual measurable harm. I don't need my inspirations to be flawless saints, but I do want to, like, be able to take what resonates, learn when harm happens, and keep growing alongside others. But the fact that sometimes people who do bad things make good art, it's like a fact of life. Like, there's a spectrum, obviously. There's a big difference between listening to a band whose member said something, like, mildly ignorant in the 1970s and, like, actively supporting a, like, modern day hate group. But the point is, we lose something when we expect perfection from everyone who creates anything, especially in a subculture that's supposed to be for weirdos and, like, the works in progress. I feel like we need to make more space for people who are still learning, not just the most polished, palatable, algorithm-safe, like, fully thought everything out and, like, have the answers about this stuff creators. Like, I don't want to be anyone's idol. I just want to be in a community, and I want other people to feel like they can share their art, their style, their voices, even if they're scared or they're still figuring it out or they might be wrong about stuff. I feel like so often it's terrifying to post things and have people like be like, you said this wrong and you are bad about this and blah 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 blah. And I just want, when people post things and these topics, especially when it's just like about stuff that's really like, subculture is supposed to be for fun, it should be a conversation. And I want to be clear about something. Like, when I say we shouldn't expect artists or creators to be perfect, I'm not talking about turning a blind eye to harm or giving a pass to people who like genuinely spread dangerous ideologies. There's a difference between not knowing everything and like actively promoting hate. Like, yeah, people mess up, people learn, but that's not the same as like bringing reactionary politics into a subculture that's historically been about resistance and rebellion. I've seen stuff lately like conservative goths, or like these kind of labels that to me feel kind of oxymoronic. And like, I don't personally really care what someone else calls themselves, but I do care when their beliefs cause actual real world harm. Like, you can call yourself goth and listen to Bauhaus and do whatever you want, but if you're pushing for policies or ideas that actively harm marginalized people, that matters to me way more than your fashion sense or your music tastes. Like, that feels bigger of an issue than who gets to be goth. Like, the fact that they are conservative, it's like, you know what I mean? Like, let's be so fucking for real and not forget that as much as we wish they weren't, like, Nazi punks are a thing. And saying that, like, well, they're not real punks, that doesn't kick them out of the community automatically. Like, we have to kick them out of the community and like resist their ideology and like physically remove them from spaces. Like, just being like, oh well, they're not a real punk, what does that do, you know what I mean? So like, I'm not here to be the judge of like who's goth or who's not, but I'm just trying to like figure this out and build something that feels honest and welcoming and safe. I also really worry that if we only call out conservative goths as like the only ones that are like ruining the subculture or whatever, we actually just give a pass to so much stuff that is conservative ideology but repackaged in a way that is like appealing to the subculture or to you specifically or like whatever it is. Like, I've seen so much stuff from like very young people who I'm sure are very well-meaning but are just echoing like really slut-shaming rhetoric about like other goth girls and like the fact that they dress so slutty is like making men be fucked up to me. And it's like, that's not the other girls' fault. Like, if we only blame conservative goths for having conservative views, it like gives a pass to so much other shit that like just gets given a pass because it's repackaged in this feminist way of like, well, I want to be respected as a woman. And it's like, sure, you can say that, but you can't say that while saying, and all these other sluts over here are making me be disrespected. No, like, they're allowed to do whatever the fuck they want. You can do whatever the fuck you want. But like, this self-policing, when it only is noted as a negative thing if someone like goes and says on the internet, hey, I'm a conservative goth, like, A, I feel like they're just like kind of clickbaiting, rage baiting because they know what that's gonna look like on the internet, but B, it just, yeah, gives a pass and lets other shit slide under the rug. So yeah, that makes me really uncomfortable with the other part of the situation, is like when we just name the problem and be like, the only reason it's bad is because this isn't what the history is about. And it's like, okay, well, if your reason for something being bad is that it doesn't conform to the history, that's just like repackaged Republican talking points of like conservatism and like tradition being the good thing. How about we like talk about the actual harm that conservative ideologies does and like the actual problems, instead of just like, I don't know, piling on to this Trump supporter wearing black lipstick and giving her views because she is wanting to rage bait and troll on the internet. I don't know. I might be super off on this, but it bothers me when we only see harm as like people who, in my opinion, are trolling or whatever. All right, that's it. They might not be trolling. They might be serious. I don't know what people's things. Okay, that's it. I know it's complicated, the whole art from the artist thing, but like just critical thinking over idol worship. Like, I think you can admire someone's art or style or creations without idolizing them or excusing their behavior or thinking they're a good person. Like, I love Buffy. I hate Joss Whedon. I hate his misogyny. I still watch Buffy, but like with a critical eye, and like especially knowing how Charisma Carpenter was treated, like it does taint it for me. Like the idea that only cartoon villains are capable of harm, I think is dangerous. Regular, likable, creative people can cause harm, and I think it's okay or normal to be inspired by people, but like to make sure you don't let that like replace your values or your critical lens. Like whether you choose to keep engaging with an artist's work after learning something troubling about them is totally up to you. I'm not saying that you should just give everything a pass or pretend that harm doesn't matter. If learning something about someone's past or beliefs taints their work for you, like that is completely valid. Art is emotional, it's personal, and sometimes when something breaks that trust or connection, it just cannot be unbroken. I also think that sometimes cutting yourself off from art that you genuinely love, not because you're okay with the harm, but like only because you're trying to be a good person, that can end up hurting you more than it actually affects the person in question. And I think there's something complicated and real about that. The loss of joy or comfort or nostalgia, that's real too. And I don't think that you should be ashamed of like trying to navigate the gray area. Like, to be super clear, I am not saying support every artist no matter what, dude. Like, J.K. Rowling's a bigot, but like Harry Potter was cool, so like just go for it. Like, no. Obviously, especially when someone's like alive and active and has a huge platform, like continuing to support their work financially directly funds their harm. Like if someone's shown themselves to be a person whose values are fundamentally not aligned with yours, it totally makes sense to choose not to support them with your time, with your attention, with your money. But at the same time, I think I'm trying to say that it's unrealistic to expect every creator, artist, or public figure to be perfectly, completely aligned with all of your values or never to have messed up, like, ever. If perfection is the bar, then we kind of set ourselves up for disappointment from the jump. Every human, at some point, has caused harm, and that doesn't mean we excuse it, but it means we need space for nuance. There's a spectrum here, and yeah, everything can't be treated the same way, but I think it's worth acknowledging this complexity and letting yourself hold that tension instead of feeling like you immediately need to take a hard stance on everything. I'm gonna end this with this final little note rant. When someone asks me, can I be goth if such and such, it makes me so sad. First, do whatever you want forever. Literally, if it's not hurting anyone, live your life. Second, why are you asking me? I am not the goth pope. I don't hand out licenses. Please, I am begging you. Do not build a habit of seeking permission to express yourself. You don't owe your identity to a community. Third, truly, who gives a fuck? Like, this is supposed to be for fun. Subcultures aren't gated communities, and fitting in shouldn't come at the cost of your joy. Labels, at their best, are tools. Shortcuts to help you find stuff that you might like, connect with people, and explore new ideas. Useful and helpful are the keywords. They're not requirements. They are not rules. They are not sacred texts. Mix them up, leave what doesn't serve you, make them weird. Use them to build a world that makes you feel more you. Like, this goes for gender labels, aesthetic labels, sexuality, everything. You do not have to perfectly fit into an aesthetic or a label or anything. Just like what you like, wear what you want, make your own rules. You will be so much more content when you stop outsourcing your sense of self to other people's expectations. I know it's easier said than done, but it needed to be said. All right, that's all I got for now. Thanks for watching. I told myself so many times that I was like done and no more like adding in more things, but I just can't. So I just want to say, like, sorry if this contradicts anything that I said earlier in the video. I've like watched and rewatched and edited it so many times. Like, I might do one more watch through before it goes back, but I just don't know that I have it in me to like go back and surgically rework every part to make it perfectly aligned and like put the section where it like should belong. So I might just let myself say what I need to say here. So, sorry if it's repetitive, sorry if it's messy. I have more thoughts and more feelings and I need to say them. First, on like gratitude and guilt and like the algorithm. So I just wanted to say like a huge thank you for the love on my latest video like about cringe and stuff, because I did not expect like the overwhelmingly kind words and comments and like your guys' kindness. They're like really warmed my heart, like genuinely, and it made me feel seen in a way that I didn't expect. And weirdly, for a little while, it also made me feel kind of guilty for what I said in this video and like lots of the feelings and stuff that I've been having. Like I was feeling like maybe I'm being ungrateful, complaining about algorithms or reach or capitalism, when clearly people are engaging with my work and telling me that they're getting value from it. But the more that I like kind of reflected on that feeling, I think it's not really about feeling ungrateful, but it's about like this dissonance that I'm having with like, I love doing my work. I love when people tell me that they've made something like inspired by a video, like some wild DIY, or that they've thrifted just something and transformed it, or rescued a doll, or made a handmade little thing. That fills my cup more than anything. But we live in a system where that kind of fulfillment, community care, connection, creative contribution, that's just not enough to sustain us. Not economically and not algorithmically. There's something honestly kind of painful about feeling useful in your community and yet constantly being told by the systems we rely on, like the platforms, capitalism, the institutions, that the usefulness isn't valuable unless it's profitable or scalable or viral. And it's just like kind of a demoralizing contradiction. Because part of me knows that like I could be more marketable, but I'm really fucking stubborn about it. Like I know I could do things to make myself more mainstream appealing. I could make shorter content or post on TikTok or narrow my niche or follow trending sounds or make the really clickbaity titles with like the like thumbnails and like the red and yellow text and all this kind of stuff. But I don't want to. It's not who I am, and it's not what my work looks like or feels like. Like if that stuff doesn't feel like me, I'm not polished, I'm not concise, I don't want to become like a brand template. My content is weird and rambly and overly specific and full of strange detours because I am weird and rambly and overly specific and full of strange detours. I remember before I started my channel feeling like I didn't belong on YouTube because I didn't see any creators like me. Queer, disorganized, rambly little freaks doing long-form niche projects that didn't fit really cleanly into a mold. And I'm not saying they weren't out there, it's just that like, I personally was having trouble finding them. And it really sucks that in order to be successful, so many of us are told to just smooth ourselves out until we're unrecognizable. So I don't want to say I'm like judging people who like short-form content or like the really dramatic, really like that kind of stuff. Like, it's valid to enjoy fast-paced, satisfying stuff, but I find it just like really overstimulating and alienating. I remember at my old job at the cat cafe, they made us download TikTok to like make TikToks about the cats or whatever, because it was like a charity cafe. And the first time I downloaded that godforsaken app and opened it on my phone, and like everything was just playing and there was no way to like pause it or like make things stop or like slow down the volume or like anything, and it was just like so overwhelming and not intuitive at all, and like just deeply like turned me off completely. Like not in like a moralizing way, like I'm so much more evolved than these TikTok it was just like I do not want to force myself to be on this platform. I hate it, and it just feels really frustrating that it feels like the content that I naturally want to make, like the weird bouncing from thing to thing, consistently inconsistent, rambly and detailed and niche to the point of alienation for some folks, is being pushed away in favor of like very short, really consumable, shareable, and like super satisfying content. And like, I know that this is a personal problem, but I fucking hate how every single platform now seems like they are prioritizing that style. Like with the TikTok reels and the YouTube shorts and the Instagram, I cannot stand it. And it feels like everyone has to either make that content or just like go away. And I think I'm just like being over dramatic about it, but I really, it's not for me. Like I don't even want to be successful in the way algorithm defines success. I want to be useful. I want to be myself. I want to make weird, spooky, heartfelt things that make people feel less alone, more creative, more themselves. And I know that's idealistic and not realistic, but it's just like the tension I'm sitting with. Because the truth is, I'm incredibly lucky. I have a small, deeply engaged audience who clearly cares, and that is such a privilege, and I don't want to discount that. Smaller audiences can sometimes feel more like a true community and be like insulated from the hate and chaos that I guess a lot of other bigger creators can face. So there's like that kind of intimacy and trust that I really treasure here. So it's not that I feel underappreciated, like quite the opposite. It's that I'm frustrated with this system that makes it so hard to survive while being genuine, like for everyone. Capitalism isn't built to support connection, growth, or care. It's built to reward exploitation, conformity, and profit above all else. And again, I'm not here to make you feel guilty. I really want to say I'm so anxious that something I said in this video might have made someone feel guilty for something they do, like watching haul content or buying fast fashion or not DIYing or buying Monster High dolls from Mattel instead of secondhand or just making different content than me in some way. And that is not my intention. I would like for people, sure, to reflect critically on their own choices and like the systems that we're a part of, but like I'm not here to blame people or shame anyone or like ask people to do a 180. I don't think you're a bad person for buying something new instead of secondhand. Like I get that there are a lot of systems that tell us that that's the way to do it. I don't think you're stupid for liking trends or fast fashion or shiny new things. We're all just doing our best in a system that makes it really hard to opt out. Capitalism is coercive. It's everywhere. It rewards participation and punishes resistance. It thrives off of our exhaustion, our insecurities, and our survival needs. So I am not trying to side-eye creators who do hauls or who take different sponsorships or who build their content differently than I do. I get it, we're all working within a really messed up structure, and there's no pure way to exist in it. Like when I was talking to my mom about this, she was like, well, your choices are either work with the system or get out. And it's like, yeah. So my goal is never to lecture or to scold. If something I say made you feel uncomfortable, I hope that it's the kind of discomfort that maybe sparks reflection. I want people to feel inspired to change, not crushed under the weight of feeling like they're doing things wrong. Because none of us are doing it perfectly, especially not me. But I want to reflect a little bit more on like the conservative goth section that I talked about, because I still stand by what I said and I feel strongly about it. And I want to come from a place of love. I've been thinking a lot about bell hooks, all about love, and like rereading it lately, and about how love is action and how we protect each other and how we educate each other and how important it is to fight to make each other feel safe. But at the same time, the world is fucking horrifying right now. Gaza, the resurgence of fascism, anti-trans laws, the return of puritanical rhetoric about queerness and gender and expression. There is so much grief, so much fear, and so much righteous rage, and I don't want to pretend that those emotions aren't valid. We don't always have the energy to be patient, to educate, to be kind and stay soft. Sometimes we're just mad, sometimes we're just heartbroken. That's real, that's part of the process. But I also believe that those feelings have to be a bridge to action, because anger without transformation just burns us up. The personal is political, but we have to carry both. And finally, a little thing that I should have said in the cringe video, but I didn't because I was trying to keep things like lighthearted and stuff, but something I didn't say and I really should have is that cringe has really often been used as a weapon, especially against neurodivergent people, queer people, visibly disabled people, fat people, passionate people, weird people, just generally anyone who doesn't conform. When I reflect on those old cringe compilations, they were so often just like autistic teens being expressive, flamboyant queer people being silly, people dressing outside the norm for their age or gender, like folks just engaging joyfully in things that they loved. Cringe is rooted in ableism and lots of deeply uncomfortable ideas of what is deemed acceptable to be in public. We used to have literal ugly laws that would bar physically disabled people and visibly different people from public spaces. This history is not abstract. It's still very much with us. So I want to really say, like, when you feel that knee-jerk reaction to like, oh, that person is so cringe, please just pause and ask yourself where that is coming from. Being uncomfortable with someone else's expression isn't a crime, but it is so important not to weaponize that discomfort against other people. Let people live. Let people be weird and loud and joyful and messy and themselves. I don't know. I think we're a lot of times just really hard on each other about this stuff. Being annoyed is a part of life. Being annoying isn't a crime, and being annoyed isn't a crime. Like, I will sometimes get annoyed because I'm really impatient and I think people are like walking too slow, or like kids are yelling in public, or like some other super mundane thing. And it doesn't help anyone for me to be like, what a dumbass idiot everyone is, like everyone's ruining my day and like whatever. Even though that might be how it feels sometimes. Like, you're allowed to be annoyed by stuff and grumble to yourself about it, but also just like recognize what is truly harmless at the end of the day, and that like you have probably also been annoying or cringe or whatever at some point. And sometimes stuff like being annoyed at people walking slow or whatever like might be internalized ableism or ageism or like whatever, but also can that person just be allowed to be slow, like without justification, like without us having to be like, oh, but they're old or they're disabled or like they have the legitimate reason. It does not affect me that deeply, and I should be able to just extend compassion without needing like a badge of suffering to be evaluated for me to like have that basic respect and dignity for other people, right? Like, I know this is easier said than done, but I don't know, it's just something I think about. Yeah, I get annoyed when kids are being loud in public, but I also have to just be like, well, they're kids, and like you were a kid once too, and like being in public means that you have to sometimes just accept other people aren't gonna be like perfectly to your standards. So like, I don't know. Okay, I want to give some more context on my feelings slash annoyance with the Monster Can't Tab bracelet. And to be clear, I might just be super annoying on this. Like, maybe I'm biased just because I don't drink soda, like, not like from a perspective of like, soda is so bad, you're bad for drinking soda. Like, I drink a shit ton of coffee and sugary tea. I cannot talk on that. That is not the point. I think the point is the fact that the ubiquity of this DIY has been driving me up the wall. Not because it's ugly, because I actually think it looks nice, but because of what it has come to represent. To me specifically. And do not let this change your mind on the bracelet. If you have one and you like it, wear it. If you like it, I love it. If you want to keep making them, go for it. This is just an example of a concept using the Monster Can Tab bracelet. Okay? And the reason I'm talking about it is because every time I search for alt DIY inspiration, I feel like it's the big thing slash like the thing seen everywhere, and I have theories on why. My theory is that sometimes trends and consumption overshadow creativity. And I don't mean that in like a you're doing it wrong kind of way. I just mean that I think we should be thinking about what we're doing and why. So, Monster energy drinks. There has been such an association of that specific brand with like scene slash emo slash mall goth slash alt kid culture. The name, the marketing, the aggressive black and neon packaging, the caffeine bomb, and like the really sweetness, the availability, the trendiness, the vibe. Like, it is very tailor-made to appeal to young alternative kids. I've been seeing cute scene slash emo girls like posing with their Monster cans since I was like 12, okay? And over time, this product became a symbol. Not just a drink, which is a practical, consumable, disposable, like mundane item, but something more, something to be desired, consumed, and collected in high volumes. Like, growing up, I remember seeing pics of scene queens online just like keeping empty rinsed out cans like on their shelves, or like the never to be opened like limited edition cans, like just shelves upon shelves in their room for like kind of decor or aesthetic purposes. And again, cool, good for them. Like, this isn't a judgment, a value judgment on that specific aesthetic. But to me, it does feel like there's this thing, this consumable, purchasable beverage that ostensibly has nothing to do, like artistically or musically or physically, with the subculture, yet has become a symbol for it. Again, just using Monster as an example. It's a desirable, trendy, but relatively accessible item. Like, you can just get it at the gas station or the grocery store. It's a shorthand to show that you're in and you participate in the emo slash scene slash mall goth culture. You see folks seeking out cans because the specific color will like match an outfit and the aesthetic and like look really good in a social media post. And I'm not a cop. Like, if you like drinking that Monster and the aesthetic of it makes you happy, awesome, enjoy it. Like, not the point. This isn't really about people finding a new beverage that they enjoy. It's about the way that a random beverage has become an aesthetic item that symbolizes membership into a subculture. And that's where I start to feel weird about it, because this consumable, purchasable product, one that doesn't actually have anything to do with like music or clothes or art or like individual, has somehow become this cultural shorthand for being emo or alt or whatever. It's the thing you're supposed to like if you're part of the scene. And again, nothing wrong with enjoying the drink, but I feel like this has less to do with the drink itself, like the flavor, the taste, and more about the larger phenomena where a purchasable, consumable good becomes an abstract symbol of identity or rebellion or whatever. Because in a capitalist system, the lie of spend your money as like a way to engage in identity is like evil, genius, mastermind capitalist bullshit, right? Like that's the dream scenario for a brand, right? To become an identity object. The Monster guys knew what they were doing. The can tabs aren't just like normal silver aluminum can tabs. They're like special aesthetic ones. They have different colors, there's like the little logo on it, the special shape. It makes them unique, collectible, desirable. Marketing isn't neutral. They slot themselves so neatly into DIY culture in a really insidious capitalist way. And I looked it up. This is called product symbolism or symbolic consumption, like this concept that I'm talking about. So, the tab DIY. It's very visually appealing, it's relatively easy to make. The hardest part of making it, honestly, is just collecting the sheer number of tabs needed in order to create it. You need 20 to 28. And I'm saying it's hard unless you live where you got lots of soda drinkers around you, like your household, you all drink a lot of soda, or like you just have a lot of disposable income and like buying 28 Monsters is like, whatever. And if you're naturally gonna drink or enjoy a lot of soft drinks, I think that the Monster Can Tab bracelet is an amazing way to use up the tabs. If you're going outside and collecting the tab bits like people have thrown out, or like taking them from the recycling, oh my god, seriously amazing. Like what a wonderful way to make treasure out of trash. But, and this is where my thing is, I have seen folks talking about feeling like they need to purchase or consume large amounts of these soft drinks just to make the DIY, or to make it in specific colors or whatever. And that is where my ears perk up and I feel just like a little uneasy. Because like, if you feel like you have to buy a shit ton of these energy drinks just to make the trendy DIY, just so you can drink them to collect the tabs to make this thing, like, what are we doing? Are we recycling at that point, or are we just shopping with some extra steps? And I get it, I'm being dramatic and people can do what they want and like, whatever. But to maybe give some extra context, a personal tangent that may or may not be relevant. I used to smoke cigarettes. Not glamorizing that, but I do want to say I totally bought into the whole like smoking is cool and edgy and rebellious and also a way to socialize and make friends because like all the cool people at the smoke pit, you can be friends with them if you go smoke too. That whole thing like really was a big catalyst for me starting smoking. And I'm not here to moralize smoking. I understand that it's bad for your health, but I do not think being a smoker makes you a bad person. What I am saying is that cigarettes are a perfect example of an extremely unethical, environmentally destructive, addictive product being sold as counterculture. Like damn, Big Tobacco really propagandized the youth on that one. And not to be like Monster Energy is just as bad as cigarettes, because I don't think it is, but I see a similar pattern. A mass-produced product pushed into alternative spaces, marketed as a symbol of rebellion, and slowly worming its way into DIY and youth culture. And to be clear, cigarettes have been around a lot longer than Monster. I'm not making that thing. What I am saying is like what you like, but if you only like it because it's emo to like Monster and I'm emo, so I have to buy 20 to 28 of these Monster soft drinks to make this can in my emo colors, like just spend your money on a drink you actually like. We're allowed to like things, but we also deserve to know why we like them, and whether it's actually us making that choice, or just a really good marketing campaign. And honestly, sometimes it's not gonna be a binary, like you can't necessarily parse out those things all the time. But like seeing it over and over on social media and it gets drilled into your brain that like this brand is an integral part of the subculture, that sucks. So yes, if you genuinely enjoy Monster, drink it. Make the bracelet, go for it, like, I don't care. But if you are forcing yourself to choke down can after can just to get the tabs, just to make the DIY, just to be part of the subculture, maybe take a step back. Like, buy the drink you actually enjoy, collect the tabs from the recycling bin, paint them, customize the bracelet, do your own spin of it. You don't need to buy into like every single little part of the subculture to belong. So yeah, I might just be insane because I don't like soda, but I think that that is kind of further context on my frustration with the Monster bracelet. Okay.
Bye.